Hello everyone, Jordan here, and today we've got another first impression video for you guys. And today we're going to be taking a look at Cloudberry Sim's Oakland International Airport for FSX and Prepared. As a quick rundown, Oakland is in the Bay Area next to San Francisco and is a part of the trio of airports, if you will, surrounding the Bay Area of San Francisco, and Oakland. These three airports all kind of are really close to each other, but they all kind of have different markets and they serve different airlines and whatnot, so they're pretty vital in the airline industry. Nonetheless, for the longest time, there's not been a very good Oakland in either simulator, disconcerting, explain, and prepared. However, recently, from FS developer, Cloudberry Sim, which is a development group really run by one person, has released their scenery for $16 on Sim Market, available for FSX and prepared users. To build on my last point, this airport was developed really by one person, and as posted from FS developer, this airport has been in progress for several months. Now, this is said person's very first large airport, so in some areas I think it's rightfully so we should cut him a little bit of slack because again, it's his first airport and this is affordably priced, so I think there's some room for slack, if you will. Nonetheless, within this first impressions video, we're going to be talking about the positives, the negatives, and a conclusion. Let's start with the positives, shall we? When you first load up the scenery, it may look a little bare bones here and there, but overall I think he did a pretty good job. The terminals are nothing too complex, but they're pretty good on frames. As you can see, I'm recording everything in live time, and the frames are pretty smooth. I'm currently running a GTX 1060 6GB along with an i5 4690K. Frames are pretty fine, and I'm pretty happy with the fact that this isn't an overly complex airport that's just cluttered down with poor optimized things. Furthermore, I feel like the airport is very well modeled. As a person who flies to Oakland relatively pretty often, at least I did during the summer, and spent a considerable amount of time there, I feel like the external part of this airport is really well done, or at least really realistic compared to the real world counterpart. Now, as you can see so far, an interior is not modeled, but it's not really that bad of an issue right now because again, this was an FS developer project based by someone who is really doing this for the first time, and I'm not expecting top of the line quality with this, and again, for a price tag of $16, it's nothing too serious. You can tell in areas where the person didn't have as much experience per se as Flightbeam or FS Dream Team or Flight Tampa, but I feel like he had really good workarounds to make the scenery look very complete and whole. There's many areas where I feel like the developer could have been very lazy and not added and incorporated several things, but in my opinion, I think he did a very good job including a lot of details that really bring the airport to life. For example, the BART stations right over here, as well as the pick-up and drop-off area. Now, as you can see, there's not a lot of detail for the actual ground itself. This includes, maybe parking garages and roadways, but it's nothing too serious. I think it's okay for what we've got, and as you can see by the rail lines for the BART network, it's pretty nice. It's interesting to look at. It feels like a real airport, and I think like the positives far outweigh the negatives in this case here, and I'm really happy with the level of detail that he's added. Now, another thing I like about this scenery is the price tag. On Sim Market, this scenery is available for $16 United States dollars, which is pretty cheap compared to a lot of other sceneries. Now, the developer mentioned that he had to take time off his real-world job and pour into this, so that's money lost, so I think it's right that he's able to charge for the scenery and recoup his losses there. With a price tag of $16, you can kind of cut your losses if you don't like the scenery, and it's nothing like the upper Flight Tampa or FS Dream Team or Flightbeam sceneries that can push upwards of $30+, so it really feels like, it's an okay investment. $15 is $15, it's nothing too serious, so I'm very happy that this person didn't overcharge, but he also didn't undercut himself, and he charged, in my opinion, what is a very fair price. Another point I'd like to make concerns the jetways. As you can see so far, these jetways are not functional. They're static jetways. They do not move, they are not SO jetways, and they do not connect to the aircraft. However, in my opinion, the developer took the best of this situation and provided a GSX Level 2 profile so that if you do have GSX Level 2, which a good amount of people do, you can automatically replace these jetways with SO jetways. The logic of the developer was that he didn't have the experience or know-how to really create high quality SO jetways, which can be a very difficult and daunting task, so he worked with what he could and found a very good workaround in my opinion. Some developers could, just leave us bare bones and say figure it out on your own, but this developer, by the fact that he's included a GSX profile in the in the product, shows that at least he cares and he wants to make sure that people are satisfied with this product. As we pass by the freighter portion of the airport, you can see there is a lot of ground detail and ground objects. Now, for those concerned about performance, in the configurator, there are lots of options where you can turn this stuff off for higher performance. Again, I'm really happy that the developer included this because some senior developers do not give you the option to turn off these things, and this even applies to some aircraft developers where they don't really optimize the scenery very well and take out things that are unnecessary, such as these details here, for better performance. It really shows that the developer is trying to cater to everyone and make sure everyone is satisfied, and as I mentioned previously in my last point, that the product satisfies everyone and that it works for everyone. Furthermore, as you see this AI 737 taxiing to the runway for departure, you can see that an AFCAD map as well as AI traffic compatibility was a high priority with this scenery. I'm really happy that the developer included this because there have been some payware sceneries where the developers actually don't include a lot of AI compatibility or updated AFCAD maps, which is a little enraging because they charge more than this scenery and they don't include the bare bones materials such as this, which are bare bones in my opinion. So I'm really happy that the developer has included and made sure that the developer wasn't lazy is what I'm trying to imply here. You can see the ground markings over here are pretty good too. It's not perfect and it's not the best thing I've ever seen in a flight sim, but it's really nice. It gets the job done. It's visually appealing, and with what he has and the experience he has, I think he did a pretty good job. And for $16 scenery, I'm very much so impressed because there are scenery developers that will charge more than this and have default textures, which in my opinion is an atrocity, but that's for another time. I digress. Furthermore, in the distance, you can see the miscellaneous and freighter portion of the airport. This is where other operators fly out of, and I'm really happy the developer took the time to model the individual hangars. It looks very realistic. It looks just like the hangars I saw in real life. And again, it's like there are scenery developers in our world that will charge more than what this scenery is charging and have less detail than this, which is pretty confusing how that logic works, but I'm just really happy that the developer here put his heart and soul into this project. And even though it's not perfect and it's affordable, it's still a very good scenery. Concerning the ground textures, you can see over by the taxiways that the ground textures over here are pretty good. You can also see though they are repetitive textures, and that's something I'll talk about in the negative segment. But they are pretty good, and I think the developer did a very good job with the resources he had, and I'm pretty satisfied. I have no real complaints with them, so yeah. Nonetheless, with that being said, it's time to move on to the negatives. Alright, firstly, I'd like to probably point this out and say I'm going to be a little nitpicky on the negatives here because that's just kind of what I do, and I think it should be fair because I'm nitpicky with practically all aircraft and sceneries that I review, so just a little fair warning. But nonetheless, the first thing I think is a negative, quote, quote, is the fact that the scenery does not have operational jetways. Now, this is something that is kind of out of the control of the developer, pardon me, where he has stated multiple times on FS Developer that he is not as experienced as the top tier scenery developers, so you shouldn't expect that, one. And two, he included a GSX level 2 profile, so if you really wanted SO jetways, you could have them. But in my opinion, you know, it's just something that we've come to expect now by all these other sceneries, so that when we don't see it, it just seems a little weird. Furthermore, the photoreal ground textures are a little blurry and they're not that high resolution. Now, I do understand that getting ortho can be difficult and expensive. So, based off what he has right here, it's acceptable. It's nothing too fancy or flashy. I would have preferred if they were a little better or higher resolution, but again, this could be his absolute limit where he couldn't get the resources. But it's just the ground textures look a little cheap, if you will, especially the grassy area over here. To add, the vegetation around the airport isn't really good nor aesthetically pleasing. It just looks like a bunch of green pineapples, or it doesn't look like it fits very well, and I'm glad that the developer took the time to incorporate these because they look better than nothing, but it's one of those things where it's like I would have preferred if he took the time to just put grass there or something and not try to go as elaborate as this. Continuing on the topic of textures, as you can see where my mouse is, I do hope my mouse actually shows up, the taxiway as well as some portions of the runway have this really weird black texture. Now, when I looked at some video footage, it wasn't necessarily like this, which was a little confusing on my part because I was wondering why it was like this, but I feel like it just looks a little cheap and not like a highly professional scenery, which is not what this is because the developers made that very clear from the start. But again, it's a paid scenery. We kind of have come to expect not to have these little errors, if you will, here and there. Continuing with the black textures, as you can see, it continues over here, and again, from real world experience as well as pictures, I feel like it's a little off, but it's nothing too serious. Repetitive textures as well right here are also present, and I don't remember if it's like this in real life, but in my opinion it looks a little, you know, like copy and paste cheap when you just have the same textures go all the way down. But again, if it's like this in the real world, which it might be, then I do sincerely apologize, but it just feels like, I feel like it could be a little better, a little higher quality, if you will. Now, one thing I'm really not a fan of is the night environment. Now, again, the developer has made it very clear on FS Developer from the start that he doesn't really know how to do a lot of night textures and night work for his sceneries. So as you can see, it's really kind of bright, and it's just like the same as it would be in the daytime. So again, it looks kind of cheap, and it looks a little disappointing at night, but you know, I do hope later on in an update the developer will fix this, because the developer does seem to be very passionate about this project, and he does seem to be improving the scenery every day, or at least monthly. Nevertheless, that's pretty much it for the negatives. I'm pretty overall happy with this scenery, and I think we can move on to the conclusion and the final thoughts. Overall, I think the scenery is pretty good, especially for the price tag of $16. It certainly is not Flight Tampa, FS Dream Team, or Flight Beam quality, but I think it's acceptable. The developer has made it very clear that he'll continue to work on this project, and he's putting his heart and soul literally into the project, and I'm very happy to see where this goes. I'm very excited to see where this goes. Granted, there are some things that in my opinion should be fixed relatively soon, such as the night environment, but as the developer continues to work on this project and gains more experience and knowledge, I'm sure these things will be fixed later on. In my opinion, if you're someone like me who flies Southwest Airlines operations quite a lot, or you would like to have all the airports that a certain airline flies to, say Alaska, in the western portion of the United States, then yes, I do believe you should buy Oakland. Nonetheless, I think the developer did a very good job. I'm very happy, and I'm really excited to see what he does in the future. There are some shortcomings, but they're very small shortcomings that I'm sure will be fixed very soon in an update or multiple updates, and I'm just really proud of the guy. So overall, that's pretty much all we have for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Smack the like button for more content such as this, and hopefully I'll be able to make more in the future. Nonetheless, I'm Jordan. Thanks for watching.